Well, my editor still isn't working. So, just gonna have to get used to me and this for now, really and truly. But
A traveller visiting southern Italy can
ancient
still find
Greece.
people speaking Greco and Calabrian Greek and see ancient Greek temples and cities, echoes of a distant past when Greeks left their homeland to found colonies not only in Magna Graecia, as the Roman writers called it, but all over their known world. In this video, we're going to take a look at how the ancient Greeks set off to establish colonies in new lands.
Hell
If becoming more
yeah.
knowledgeable was your New Year's resolution, the
Sponsor. This is from like
to
years
look at
ago,
a map
man.
of Greece, the reasons behind the ancient colonization waves would be easily identifiable. Greece is and was a land of limited resources, and its mountainous terrain meant that there was precious little farmable land. While many Greeks turned to the seas for fishing and trading, agriculture was still the main means of food production, and the average Joe was still a farmer. As the population of the city-states grew, and land had to be divided among more and more families, it became evident that the small fiefs could no longer economically support their poor owners. Chalcis and Eretria on the island of Evia, as well as Corinth and Megara due to their geography, were among the first places where the situation escalated and consequently became the first cities to send colonists to other parts of Greece and the Mediterranean world to seek their fortunes there. Another reason that possibly forced part of the population of a city to relocate was political differences. The mostly oligarchic and tyrannical regimes that ruled over most archaic Greek city-states excluded many from governance of the city, regardless of their economic status. The resentment these people had towards the ruling class because of their exclusion from political privileges, combined with the discontent born from the growing economic distress, created a dangerous environment that could lead to war. To defuse the situation, the ruling elites of the cities opted for the classical solution of sending them away as colonists, killing two birds with one stone, solving the problem of overpopulation and getting rid of their political opponents.
All right, I wanted him to say that before I say what I'm about to say. Okay, so it's kind of funny, right? Because if you check my community posts on my channel, I don't know if some of y'all see it, some of y'all don't. You, you know, again, I literally just said this in my video yesterday, but again, one of the comments um of someone whom, I mean, to be fair, he's just a rage beta, but still he claims that I am not British. Then when I pointed out the fact that Barbados was a uninhabited island colonized by the English originally, actually, before the union of Scotland and England happened, Barbados was already an English settlement, right? Um, he again, dude, it's like ridiculous, man. He replied. You could go read the conversation yourself, but he says, "Okay, so you were a colony of you were a colonized territory," and then he says because basically what he said was because you were colonized by Britain, you are not British, bro. Bro, let me repeat that one more time. Like, let that go through your head. Because you were colonized by Britain. Keep in mind, my country was uninhabited. It was an uninhabited, abandoned island, by the way. Because the English set up a colony. I am not British, bro. I mean, I know most of y'all have enough of IQ, but bro, dude, I mean, just thinking about that, dude, it just makes you lose brain cells. Because, and let me just talk more coherently. Obviously, when a colony is set up by its mother country or mother city, it's going to be influence, not even influence. It's going to be whatever whoever set up that colony. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Unless that colony was conquered, was set up in conquered lands, then usually what will happen is a mixture of cultures will typically happen, right? Typically happen. But oh my gosh, dude. Like again, this misconception of colonialism, it's annoying. The guy thought, definitely thought that he just had the wrong idea of colonialism. I just have no other way to put it. He had no. I know this is why I get stupid comments, dude. Like stupid comments all the time of people saying, "Oh, you're not English or you're not British, bro." Do you know what happens in a colony? Please, please go learn how a colony works before you comment stupidness like that. Oh my goodness gracious me.
But for whatever reason the colonists had to abandon their homeland and head into the unknown, the procedure was almost the same, for the colonization was in most cases a public endeavor of the city, not acts of individual migrations, though there are examples of private ventures, such as the expedition of Miltiades the Elder to Chersonese. One of the preliminary and most important steps in the establishment of a new colony was the selection of the Ikistes, or the founder of the new settlement. These men could come from any social background, however it's probable that in most cases they were of noble birth. Regardless of the class they originated from, the Ikistes had to be accomplished men with a knack for leadership, as their main task was guiding a group of people to a new home. Most colonies had one founder, though there are cases of cities founded by multiple Ikistes, like Rhegion in modern-day Calabria. Furthermore, from the writings of Thucydides, we learn that when a colony itself wanted to establish another colony, it was customary to ask for an Ikistes from the mother city. Once selected, the Ikistes would have to seek the approval of the gods, especially Apollo, and to do so he would have to consult the Pythia at the Oracle of Delphi.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting learning how different colonies work. Um, Partially doing this video, doing this reaction video, because, you know, at this point, the amount of comments that I'm getting of people who just don't understand, or who just straight up have the wrong idea of colonialism, and just don't seem to understand that colonialism isn't conquering people or being barbaric. I'm just gonna refer them to this video at this point, because my goodness, I very fed up of repeating myself. I mean, Jesus, have mercy on me, oh God! Like seriously, I'm not even using the Lord's name in vain. I'm just saying, like, actually, like, Lord have mercy on me. But that's very interesting how this, like, the Greeks, how their system of colonies worked. I think it's cool.
Herodotus informs us that by his time, the consultation with the Pythia was somewhat obligatory, but it is likely that the oracle was influential in the colonization movement from its earliest days, even if the evidence is not securely historical. Later authors, like Cicero, mention other oracles such as Ammon's in Siwa and Zeus's in Dodona, as well as other sanctuaries dedicated to Apollo, especially the ones in Asia Minor, were consulted. However, Delphi seems to be the ultimate religious authority in matters of colonization. But why did the Achistes have to consult the Pythia? Again, from Herodotus, we learn that Dorieus, the brother of the famous king Leonidas, did not ask for the oracle's advice on which land he should colonize, nor did he follow any other customs before he set off for his first endeavor to establish a colony. With his first attempt ending in failure, as the Carthaginians attacked the colony, Dorieus decided to try a second time, now visiting the oracle and asking if he would take the land to which he was setting forth, with the oracle replying that he would. Another account, this time from Thucydides, informs us that the Spartans who wanted to colonize the area of Heraclea in Trachis had already made all decisions and merely asked the Pythia for the god's approval. From these accounts, it seems that the bestowment of divine authority on the person of Achistes and consent for his endeavor was the primary goal of consulting the prophetess, although there might be some basis about the oracle giving geographical directions to the colonists. It's not hard to imagine that since people from all over the ancient world visited the Oracle of Delphi, the people of the sanctuary had some insight as to which lands were fertile, close to important trade nodes, or if the locals were friendly towards strangers. Many foundation legends include the Achistes asking which land they should settle, though these accounts are somewhat dubious. One such example comes to us from Strabo and Tacitus, who report that the Pythia told the Megarian colonists who founded Byzantium to build their city opposite the blind people. The ones derided as blind were earlier Megarian colonists who had founded the city of Chalcedon nearby, completely ignoring the site of Byzantium and the numerous advantages it offered. However, Herodotus attributes the same words to a Persian named Megabazus, who upon visiting the area commented that the settlers of Chalcedon must have been blind.
Alright, folks. Do you see anybody being brutally murdered? Brutally killed? Oh my gosh, dude. Like, you see any brutality happening? No. No. Again, it's like what I said yesterday, my Carthage reaction, bro. Like, sometimes I just wish that I don't have to share this planet with some people. Like, it's mind-boggling how some people are just, their way of thinking just blows my mind. But again, I'm gonna repeat myself one last time. Where's the brutality? Where's the conquering? No, not conquering, because that's a whole different word, right? Where's the, the bad stuff that people like to think about when you hear colonization, right? Oh my gosh. And you might be saying, "Oh, why are you always bringing this up? Why are you always bringing this up? You're always bringing this up in your videos." Because I get comments like this, like, frequently, like seriously, like, so frequently, bro. I had a guy who commented. He was like, "How are you Scottish? 'Cause you're black." I'm like, bro, do you realize the original settlers that colonized Barbados mostly were Scottish people? And before you say, well, that doesn't make you Scottish, even though my surname is Scottish and I'm mixed, the place that they originally settled, it's literally still called Scotland District in Barbados. And it looks just like Scotland. Oh my gosh. Actually, my accent is, and everybody's accent in Barbados is a mixture of Scottish, Irish, and English. Actually, more so Scottish. I'm a bit more Irish. If I had to give it in order, it sounds more Scottish than Irish than English, right? So Scotland obviously has had a lot of influence, cultural influence. Of course, it would have a cultural influence. I mean, for goodness sakes, they were the original colonists of Barbados for the most part. And Scotland knows, like, it knows its freaking history. I don't need to say that, but other people, I mean, so much ignorant people. My goodness gracious me. I mean, dude, I had to go copy the Wikipedia article from Black Scottish people, and I just replied to this guy. I just replied to him with the link. I said, please read this article. It'll say, big and bold, Black Scottish people exist in the Caribbean. Come on, bruh. Like, this is the one thing about the historical community that's annoying to deal with, is running into these people who aren't actually, like, they don't actually like history. I made a video about this a long time ago. They don't actually like history. You know, they just like to cherry pick. They just like to find narratives, whatever fits their narratives. You know, save Europe, whatever the hell. Dude, when you find new knowledge about history, you are supposed to accept it if it's true. I accepted it when I realized that colonization wasn't always just sunshine and rainbows, right? If you watched my video yesterday, I talked about how I thought colonization was, you know, sunshine and rainbows. People just, you know, wanted somewhere else to live, and they set up a new place to live, aka a settlement or a city or village. And I eventually came to realize as I got older, right, that wasn't always the case. Colonies can have dark purposes as well. And I realized, oh, wait, shoot, guess not. Well, you know, I accepted it, right? I accepted it. Because that's what you're supposed to do with history. Let's continue.
As we have already mentioned, for Theokistes himself, the most important aspect of his visit to Delphi was his appointment as Apollo's chosen and the investment of religious authority on him by the god's prophetess. His relation to the settlers was similar to the one he had with Apollo. He guided the colonists to a new home, and he himself was guided by the god, and in a way reassured the colonists of a safe journey and success when they finally reached the promised land. And as their leader, Theokistes would be responsible for setting up the social and religious order of the newfound city. Due to this authority, a worshipping cult was formed around him after his death, which also signaled the end of the foundation era of the colony.
It's been 2 years since.
Finally, besides receiving divine authority from the oracle, Theokistes and the colonists were also given some moral justification for the establishment of their settlement, as the land was described as a gift from Apollo to Theokist. It was therefore important that their new home, that would house the humans as well as their gods that they would bring from their old city, be approved by the gods and not be seen as stolen land. Besides the consultation with the oracle, a similar practice of divination also took place. A professional seer, or even Theokistes himself, would perform a ritual to find out if the omens were favorable and the gods approved of their endeavor. It also served as further reassurance for the colonists. The establishment of a colony and even the journey itself was a great risk, and the settlers put their lives on the line, so they needed as much divine help as they could get. The colonists, at least in later times, most often volunteered for the task, and it was easy for the city to find many people who were willing to leave immediately. This might have been the case in the early Archaic period as well. However, the only reliable evidence we have about recruitment is about Kyrene, and in that case, the settlers were conscripted on pain of death. The number of colonists varied as well, in most cases ranging from just a couple of hundred to 1,000. Once the settlement was established and seemed to prosper, then others could come either from the mother city, or as it was called, metropolis, or from the wider area of Greece. As the first expedition to establish the new settlement was essentially a military undertaking, we can assume that it was mostly men who went, and women would follow in later expeditions when it would be safer, if at all. From Herodotus, we learn that the colonists
Never forget, women only wanted to have equal rights when life started getting better. Just throwing that out there, by the way. Oh my gosh, just throwing that out there. You think all these women crying about equal rights, blah, 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 all these feminists in the West would be crying about equal rights if they're in a situation like this? You think anybody was crying about equal rights back then? Nope. Because they wanted to stay at home because it was safer. And when it became clear that the world was more safe, they wanted equal rights. Just throwing it out there. Let's continue.
of Miletus married local Carian women after killing their fathers, but because of the killing, the women took an oath to never dine with their husbands and to never call them by their name. A similar case might have been Kyrene, as Herodotus only mentions men participating in the colonization, and there is evidence of intermarriage between Greek men and Libyan women. Though intermarriage between Greek men and local women was quite common, there is no evidence suggesting that all colonists acted like those of Miletus, and it would be extreme to hypothesize that none of them took Greek wives. Another practice attributed to the Greek colonists was the taking of the sacred fire from the hearth that burned perpetually in the Prytaneon, the government center of the mother city, to kindle the hearth of the colony. This practice is mostly found in later sources, while Herodotus only seems to imply this, and it is well attested at least for the case of Athens, though it is a possibility that it was a universal Greek religious custom. The symbolism of the transfer is somewhat open to interpretation, but since the fire in Hestia's altar symbolized life, then its transference to the hearth of the colony possibly symbolized the continuation of the community's life from the old city to the new. The origins of this custom can be traced to two other ancient practices. The first was marriage ceremonies, where the mother accompanied her daughter, the bride, with a torch that was lit on her father's hearth. Considering the analogous mother-daughter relation the metropolis had with its colony, it could be possible that this familial ceremony might have been the origin of the transfer of fire on state level. However, a more probable explanation is the practice of military fire-bearing and the rituals in which the Pyphoroi, the fire-bearers, participated. By analogy, the Achistes, who was also a military leader, might have been responsible for carrying the fire. Once the necessary preparations and rituals had been completed, the colonists would travel to the area they wished to settle in their warships, and the Achistes would undertake his first task after the completion of the journey, picking the right site to build the new city. The typical sites the Greek settlers picked were easily defended positions, like headlands and peninsulas, or sometimes between two rivers, and always with easy access to a water supply. Once the right site had been picked, the colonists would erect walls, build houses and temples, and divide the land between them.
Again, this is what colonization is. This is how I exactly imagine it to be. Okay, colonization is always about freaking slaughtering, killing, conquering people. Bro, I'm gonna say this until enough people get this. If I have to repeat myself over and over and over again, so be it. So be it. Again, this is what colonization is. Oh, but my country was colonized and it wasn't like that, bro. Well, I'm sorry that your country was conquered by a foreign power. I'm sorry that your country had to deal with that. But that's just history. I'm sure if your country had the power to, it done the same thing, it would go conquer other people and colonize them anyways. After conquering them. Bloody hell, man.
All of these tasks were of course supervised by the Achistes, who was also responsible for naming the colony. With the exemption of some colonies Corinth and Athens founded in the imperialistic style of colonialism, the newly founded city was an independent entity, with mostly sentimental ties to its metropolis. It wasn't an extension of the mother city, but a new city that governed itself. On the other hand, the colony did resemble the old city in many ways, as the settlers brought with them the same religious cults, calendar, dialect, and state offices.
Again, going back to what I said earlier in the video, well, what I read from that comment, right? The guy said, "You're not British." And I pointed out how Barbados was, first of all, Barbados was actually one of the original British colonies, something that I always tend to forget. It was actually one of the OG colonies. Okay? So much so that it was actually used as a model colony for every other colony in the British Empire. It was. But again, it's like, dude, it blows my mind how people do not understand what a colony is, or should understand, like, you know, what a typical colony is, unless it's like a specific colony, like a slave colony, prison colony, etc., right? We heard it here. They of course they took customs, they took everything, they copied. They not even copied. It was colonized by Greeks, so it's gonna be Greek, right? Same thing. Oh my gosh, man! Like, Barbados was colonized by the English, well, British really, because it wasn't just English people, it was also Scottish and Irish and actually Cornish people and all that, actually. So of course it's gonna be British, of course. Because, like, what other culture is there to adopt? What other culture would the British bring other than, well, you know, British culture? What language would they bring? I mean, come on, dude. The fact that I'm talking about this, need to explain this for some people to hear, it's just making me lose brain cells. This should be common sense, man.
Many colonies naturally had cordial relations with the metropolis, traded, and sometimes forged alliances and assisted each other. However, there are also cases of rivalry. A great example of a rival relationship between colony and metropolis is that of Corcyra and Corinth, and their conflict over Epidamnus, which became the prelude to the devastating Peloponnesian War. Earlier on, we mentioned that the death of the Achistes marked the end of the foundation era, and a universal practice among Greek colonies was the official commemoration of the founder and the worship of the Achistes like a hero through a cult devoted to him. So important was the founder for the colonists, it is of little surprise that his name, as well as other facts about the foundation, like the date and the name of the metropolis, were well documented and remembered centuries later. His funeral would be attended by all of the settlers, and his memory would be celebrated by an annual state festival open to all citizens of the city. From Herodotus, we learn that when Miltiades the Elder, the Achistes and ruler of Chersonese, died, the people offered sacrifices and held athletic and equestrian games in his honor. Herodotus sums it up, as it is the norm for a founder, os nomos Achiste. Even the Achistes' final resting place was different from that of the common people. Generally, the Greeks preferred to bury their dead outside inhabited areas, with notable exceptions being the cities of Sparta, her colony Taris, and Megara. However, from Pindar, we are informed that the Achistes were buried in the center of the polis, in a tomb in the Agora. This wasn't a random decision. The settlers of the city needed to have something in common to bind them, and also a tradition that was independent of those of the metropolis. so as for the colony to have a sense of religious independence. The cult
Although this type of like these ancient Greek colonies did have a lot more autonomy, it would seem like a lot more autonomy.
of the Achistes served that purpose, which is why his tomb and the cult site were located in the center of the new polis. With the death of the Achistes and the establishment of his cult, ended the first chapter in a colony's history. Some of those colonies would thrive to the point of surpassing their metropolis, like Syracuse, while others wouldn't be so lucky and were abandoned or conquered. Regardless of their fate, though, they all serve as a testimony of a time when Greece sent her children off to settle distant lands, and Greek civilization reached all over the then known world. More videos on the
Oh my goodness. All right, so this is a summary, right? Greek colonization when, spread Greek culture. Of course, when the colonists set up their new colonies, they obviously brought about Greek culture with them. Of course, because they're Greek people, setting up Greek colonies, right? All right. I'm just saying this because the same thing happened with my country. The same thing happened with my country. The only reason why Barbados, actually, funny enough, Barbados was, when it was first colonized, it was actually majority white. Actually, it was majority white. Actually, it was when the British discovered that the soil was good. At first, they tried to use the original white colonists to cultivate the land, but they weren't really that effective. So they went and they brought the Africans because they were much more effective and they were deemed cheaper, right? By that point, Barbados was already a well set up English colony at that point. So of course, the Africans that had largely, and their descendants especially, they wouldn't be able to. The original first African slaves, sure, yeah, they would have their language and whatnot, yeah, sure. Even though most of their cultural customs and whatnot, most of that was, as soon as they went on those slave ships, that was gone. But their descendants that was born in Barbados, keep in mind Barbados was originally majority white settler colony before they decided to import a bunch of African slaves, which completely changed the demographic. But of course, the descendants of those African slaves, of course, when they were born on a freaking English settler colony, I mean, the only thing that they know is English cultural customs and traditions. In fact, the largest religion in Barbados is Anglican Christian. And that's no coincidence. So, anyways, I'm just saying this because, I know some of y'all are smart enough to know, like, how history works, but it's like, dude, like, I'm just kind of fed up with just seeing all these, like, people who just do not understand what a colony is at this point. Like, I don't know why whenever people hear the word colony, they think of something negative. It's just ridiculous. Anyways, man, if you like my reactions on what I have to say, go subscribe and like the video and go check out my other reactions on my channel. If you have any suggestions for me, go comment down below. Anyways, man, I'm out.